Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Aarna Sahu, host of Aarna's News, where on this podcast channel, I aim to eliminate the gender gap in the STEM fields by featuring inspiring female professionals and highlighting their stories and accomplishments to further encourage girls. Today, on episode 43,
it is okay to come in and figure it out. You need to have the aptitude, you need to have the willingness to really learn and not be the most proficient and knowledgeable person in the room and still be able to get through that.
Today on episode 43, I'm pleased to announce our guest, Sonar Thekdi. As a vice president of strategy and operations at Google Core, she has implemented high-impact, game-changing solutions in startup, high-growth, and transformation journeys. She has been responsible for business transformation, strategy planning, PMO, operations and engineering functions for diverse groups, and has the ability to drive large and complex problems to clarity and closure. With over 25 years of repeated success with multiple high-tech companies, she has a solid blend of business acumen, strategic insight, unique perspectives, and influential leadership. So thank you so much, Sonar, for being here today. Before we dive into the questions, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Aarna. Really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you, and I'm really thrilled to be here. I think you covered everything about my professional life. Let me just introduce a little bit about my personal side of my life. I am married to Sanjay, my husband, almost 30 years, and we have two beautiful grown children. Neil is 26 and Mira is 23. And I also have my mom, who recently turned 90, who lives with us. So besides having a really fulfilling life at work, I also have a lot to look forward to in terms of the other part of my life.
All right, so my first question for you is tell us a bit about your career path.
So I'm going to take us back a few decades and talk a little bit about growing up. So I was a little less than 3 years old when my dad, who was an engineer, who passed away. And I don't recall or have any memory of meeting him. But as I was growing up and hearing stories about him, early on in my life, I said, I'm going to be an engineer just like dad and carry forward his legacy. And so started my very early path into STEM and into thinking about engineering. And I never wavered from that. Started to really think about what I'm going to do. I moved to the US when I was in high school and then moved to Silicon Valley when I was ready to go to college and decided to go into computer engineering. Went to college, got my degree in computer engineering, and my first job out of college was as a software engineer at HP. And I loved having a real job, making real money, and finally being able to put all my education to work. But about less than a year, about 8-9 months into my job, what I started to realize is a software developer job at that time could also have felt very isolating. I was sitting there debugging, writing code, but not really engaging all the time with other people. And I get my energy from being surrounded by people. And so less than a year into my job, I pivoted away from being a software developer into program management and became a system engineer at the time at HP, and then have progressed and really stayed true to that core of what really drives me every day, which is really bringing people together to solve the most complex problems by really inviting different perspectives, by asking right questions. And that's where I started, and here we are.
I really like that. I like how, although it was 8 to 9 months, so it was a really risky move, you decided to follow your passion and just, be yourself, regardless of what that might entail. And then you've, progressed from there.
Yeah, totally. And a lot of times people will design a career journey where they'll say in 5 years I want to be here, and in 10 years I want to be here, in 20 whatever. I have always opted to be very dynamic about my career in terms of, and there's pros and cons. I haven't gone in and said, you know 2 years from now this is what I want to be doing. I've always really also trusted my instinct. This is something I think, especially as women, we really have, that I call our superpower, which is really listening to your gut about what works. I'm an engineer, so I definitely am very big on verifying things. I want the data. I will ask for a lot of different opinions and perspectives. But at the end of the day, do what you know within your gut instinct is the right thing for you. And I think that has really been what has guided me, and I could say is the through line in my career.
Yeah. So staying open, having your options open, and just following your gut.
Yeah.
And this kind of is a great segue to my next question, which is what advice would you give someone wanting to pursue a career similar to yours? And do you have any tips to succeed?
Yeah, I mean, lots of things that I can think of. Let me see. So first, where I would start is, you know, I've had an unconventional career path, if you will. Like when I started in the industry, almost 2.5 decades ago, a lot of the things that people have available in terms of resources, in terms of just even options of career paths didn't exist. And I'm sure that even as the world is progressing, especially in STEM, there is such prolific growth that has happened and will continue to happen. First thing I would say is don't be afraid to chart your own path. A lot of times you will hear people say, well, do this, and then you do this, and you become an engineer one, and then an engineer two, and then an engineer three, and then a manager. But if you didn't take that path, or if you did actually think about, well, I want to go explore a different side of what this would look like, whether you want to go into research, whether you want to go into product, whether you want to go into data, whether you just really are intrigued with the supply chain challenges, both even on the software side. Like, how do you think about that? And being really open, I think, is it's really important. The second thing that I would say is, definitely early on having mentors and really being able to have a diverse set of folks that you can talk to who can give you unfiltered advice and also guide you is important to have, and continue to build your network. Of course, in your company is one thing, but also outside of your company, engage in so many other resources or support groups that you can find in your company or outside. Like I was very active at Society of Women Engineers when I was in college. You can do IEEE. There's lots and lots of resources like that. Like I've been engaged with the Anita Borg Institute and the work they do at the Grace Hopper Conference, and like actually going to things like that and meeting other people is tremendously valuable to bring and really soak in and being open to other perspectives. And thirdly, I would say is always be curious and have a desire to learn. That is the single most biggest thing I see. A lot of times people come in and they have the skills that are needed, but they think that's enough. And now that they're done with being in university, they're done and they could just keep writing code or doing this. And it's like, yeah, but there's so many new languages, there's so many new technologies constantly coming up. And so really staying open to learning, I think, is really, really important.
Yeah, just it's okay if you don't follow the conventional path. It's okay if you find your own, make your own path, be a trailblazer, if you will. And finding people that you can look up to, build your connections, that is something that is also very, very valuable. And also, as you said before, staying curious and being open to learn, whether it's in 5-minute videos or just reading a new book every single day. That's pretty important to do as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You captured it really well, Arna.
And my next question for you is, what is a common myth about your profession that you want to debunk?
Yeah, I'm going to start broad and talk about and then go in. And what I mean by that is um, one common myth about just women in STEM. I'm going to start at a very high level industry thing, is really that women don't really support each other. I think that's a big myth. I definitely have really benefited from having some amazing women mentors and sponsors, and it's been really helpful. The flip side of it, though, is male allies are still really, really important and critical to continue to help us. And so, really balancing those two. It's not an either or equation, but that is definitely a myth. I see a lot of women out there wanting to help other women. And I think every time you help somebody, you really inspire them to pay it forward and help five more people. And then that's how you proliferate the support network that you see a lot of new such networks popping up now, and that's fantastic. But that was definitely a myth. Then, when it comes to my particular sort of area in my profession of business operations strategy, there is so many different myths about what experience do you need to be in this sort of a role, whether or not you need to be an expert at the technology. I would say the reality is nobody knows everything, right? And so I think I've read this study that when there is a new job opening that opens up, usually if you look at the applicants, women are typically going through that checklist of the skills that are listed, and they go through and they say, well, if I have every one of them, then maybe I'm ready to apply. Whereas if a man looks at this job opening, they're going to look at it and say, yeah, I kind of know about this. I've done this. I don't really know, but I can learn. And so really women look to have 100% of the skills today, whereas the men are like, yeah, I know about 50% of this. I can learn the other, and both on the job and outside. And that's a huge thing that goes on in the industry. And so the other myth that I want to just have women really think about is you do not need to know it all when you take the job. It is okay to come in and figure it out. You need to have the aptitude, you need to have the willingness to really learn and not be the most proficient and knowledgeable person in the room and still be able to get through that.
Yeah, I think that's really important because technology is always changing. So, I mean, I don't think there really is one person that knows everything because everything is changing. And as you said before, I really resonated with what you said because women always try to find 100% of the checkbox. Like, whenever I have to do an assignment or something for school, I always have to make sure that I know what is happening, how to do it, everything. Whereas my peers, who are often males, they just like, they're they check out a few of the boxes and they're like, oh, okay, I can do this. And that's it. They're going to accept me because I know, although like 80%. So it's okay if you don't know all of the 100% of what the task is talking about. But as long as you have the attitude to wanting to do it, then you can complete that assignment.
Let me be super honest. It's scary at first, okay? Because we've been conditioned, like you said, even in school, you're thinking, I need to do all of this. So the first time you step away from that, it's going to be uncomfortable, it's going to be scary, But I invite all the young listeners to actually really start to think about this and putting this into practice in small ways, whether it's the sport you're playing and you want to raise your hand to be a team captain, whether it's a project that's going on in school or college where you can really lead. You do not need to be the smartest person to be a leader. Like, that's something I really want to emphasize. You can be a leader with the right mindset, with the ability to really guide the teams on how to solve the challenges. And that's really important.
Yeah, and my next question for you is, if you could step into my shoes or your younger self, what would you have asked yourself that I didn't?
The one thing that I keep going back to is don't be overcome by your fears and your shyness. I know that when I was your age, I would not dare to do what you're doing. So, first of all, congratulations on the podcast. This is fantastic and amazing to see you kind of not just talk about it, but actually put your words into action. One of my favorite quotes that I've told my kids often is, vision without execution is hallucination. So, having ideas and wanting to do great things, unless you put that into action, it's not really going to get you anywhere. And so, super important to have big dreams, but also really go after them and really put all that you have to really go pursue them and have that conviction and take some risks. My biggest thing for that I had was, what was my biggest dream, or what was my desire as I was growing up that I wanted to be? The thing that I didn't do was, I wasn't really pushed or exposed to having big dreams as a girl or as a young woman. And I want to really think about, how do we help each other really dream for and strive for the impossible and really change the world? I think that is really, really important. If we just, instead of asking everybody, what do you want to be when you grow up? What if we ask them, what is your biggest dream? And then really help them. And sometimes they don't have a dream, but we can ask little kids the question of, what would you like to change? What are the things that you're seeing? And like really engage in that conversation. I think things could be very different. It's something that I seriously and sincerely hope I can be a little bit more of as I go forward with my own, next generation of young kids that I am engaging with.
Well, thank you so much for the compliment. I really like the quote, vision without execution is hallucination. That's probably going to be my new favorite motto from now on. Um, but I really do like what you said, to always dream big, because as students, you're always encouraged to say, oh, what's the next tangible thing you can be? But having big dreams and thinking of what's going to be ahead and just having something above you to look up to is something that we should probably all aspire to be. And I think that's something really important.
Yeah, I love that. And I think if we do more and more of that, we will see, in the current macro environment, if you see there's lots of changes, there's lots happening. But if you have a longer dream, and I'm not saying it's a career path or a vision, it's bigger than that, because it's a purpose that you personally are really, really passionately connecting to. I think that can be your guiding light when you have to go and deal with changes that are constantly happening around you, to know that that's my North Star that I'm really going to go focus on. And that's what's really important.
Yeah. And what are the best resources slash books that have helped you find your career path?
Yeah, a couple things that I would say. I think in finding my career path, the biggest thing, like I said, was really having a network of people that you can trust. So having a really strong, I'm not sure if you've heard of this concept of your own personal board of directors. So if you think about a company, usually what happens is the company has the CEO is the highest position in a company that most people think. But if you look beyond that, every company has a board of directors, and these are advisors who meet regularly with the CEO. They're people with different perspectives, different backgrounds, and they are there literally to help you navigate through different situations and challenges that come your way. So think about a personal board of directors, if you will, that can help you. So there could be somebody who is like maybe a peer who understands some of the political landscape, but also the kind of work that you're doing, that you're trying to get your team to do, who can provide some tangible feedback. But it could also include somebody who's in a completely different industry, but potentially at the same phase of life that you're in, and could actually help you navigate some work life stuff. And the next person could be someone who is expert in a field that you think 2 years down the road, I want to pivot from being in the networking industry to moving into the storage industry or moving into some other area, right? Then you have somebody who can kind of guide you on what to do. And so having the diverse sort of set of board of directors is really important. And I've always leaned on my mentors and my personal board of directors as a very tangible way to both hold me accountable, but also help me maneuver through the challenges that I've faced throughout my career. The one thing that I'll say about the board of directors is membership in the board also changes. So people who may have been really great mentors and advisors, oftentimes over a period of 3, 5, 10 years become friends, and others come in and take that position in the board of directors. And so really keeping that fresh. Most companies are also always looking at their board of directors, and there's some movement that's happening, people coming off and on, and you should do the same. It's not like a one and done thing, right? So that's my biggest sort of source of getting advice and feedback, and really driving my growth. In terms of books, I like to read lots of different types of books. I would say I'm really big on leadership, and a couple people that come to mind that are my favorite are Adam Grant. Everything that he says most of the times really, really resonates with me. Brene Brown and the work that she's done really around making sure that your mental state is just as critical as your physical being, and really some of the internal challenges that we face as humans and how you overcome that. I think that's important. A couple other books that I have really, really appreciated in the more like recent part of my career where I needed some strong leadership advice. Radical Candor by Kim Scott is just an amazing book on just how much you can do, and what shifts you can experience with your team by just being able to have a direct and clear conversation. It's really helpful. And then lastly, I would say I also love to read biographies and learning about leaders that I am impressed by, either in the tech field, but also like someone like a Warren Buffett or like Michelle Obama, and really reading about their own journeys and how they've navigated through different situations. I always find there's something to learn there.
That's so cool. I mean, the board of directors personally is like a support system that you have that you can always rely on. And I like the analogy of the company that you said, that people can come on to the board of directors, but they can also come off, and that's okay to let people change the quote unquote positions so you can learn from other people and have a fresh background. And also, I really liked your books that you said. I'm definitely going to check them out. And I like how you have a wide range of books to read.
Awesome. What are your favorite books?
I kind of read a few mindset books as well. Like my dad kind of teaches me a few stuff, but I also like romance books, so that's something else.
I love it.
Yeah, and my next question for you is what do you think is a vital factor that shaped your career? What was your life before learning it, and what was your life after learning it?
I think the biggest breakthrough for me was after my first maybe 3 or 4 jobs. Every single job I've had has not been posted or been like, here, we're looking for a manager of this or a director of this or this of this. It has always been my ability to think about what it is that I have already learned. What are the things I want to learn next? What skills might I want to develop? Who might be leaders that I really aspire to work with? Going and building relationships with those people and really helping to articulate my value in a way that we can jointly create a role for me. I recognize that this has been such a special gift for me. It's not something that everyone can have, but I do want to challenge and encourage people to think outside the box. When I figured out that, it's not just figuring out that whether what is the size of the box and where you fit and positional things, but if you just ditch the box and really start to build your own narrative and really focus on your brand. I think the number one thing that I had was a brand that said, if Sonar was engaging and helping us solve this problem, we know that she'll bring the right people, the right decision makers, the right structure to have the right conversations to get us the best outcome. And I think before I had that, it was kind of like, you feel after a while like you're a hamster on a wheel. You're just going and you're going and you're going, and there is it's always nice to be well recognized, to be growing, but if you are not connecting to a purpose of what it is that you want to do and how you're providing unique value, it's harder. Versus once you figure out, like, this is what I bring to the table and this is what I want to be known for, this is what I'm going to be striving for, I think it just clarifies for you every single time you're considering the next opportunity or how you want to shape your career. You keep that at the forefront and really start to build around it.
Yeah, so I liked how you went from your dreams because you were able to think outside of the box and pursue the things that you wanted to do. And also, it goes back to like the support system and finding people who you can rely on. Because you said that your first few jobs were from people that you knew, and that's something that came from your connections and your ability to wanting to build your network and your board directors.
Absolutely.
And because we have a little bit of additional time, what is one thing you wish you had known when you began your career path?
Um, I would say just be patient. You don't need to get everything done, accomplished in the first year, decade, whatever. Careers are multi-decade long times, and continuing to strike the balance between my personal and professional life and being able to do the right thing across both dimensions is okay to do. And I'm so glad that, especially in recent times, there is so much focus also on mental health and on striking that balance, or making it okay for people to take breaks and really think about what it is that really uh, is helping you be happy. That's really, really important. And instead of trying to just do it all from the get-go, like, careers are long, just remember that, and it is okay. And everybody has their own journey, so no need to compare yourself to the next person or your friend or a relative and be like, well, this person did this, how about me? Everybody's unique, and as long as you're feeling fulfilled and learning, that's really what matters.
Yeah, being patient with yourself is something that I really resonated with because um before I used to be a really ambitious person, and then I don't know what it was, but I guess it was a bit of burnt out feeling. And it's okay to be patient with yourself, and it's okay to like not be able to like do everything from the get-go. Um I think that's something that you should probably value in life.
Absolutely.
And how do you continue to learn in order to stay on top of things within your role?
Yeah, this is really, really important. Couple of things. So one is actually hiring people who are smarter than me, who can really teach me in every situation. Like I said, getting really comfortable not being the smartest person in the room, but having a team of people who have the expertise that we need to actually go and solve the problems. Continuing to read, and most importantly, a lot of people think learning is all about taking in new things, but it's equally important to learn to unlearn. So something that might have worked for me a decade ago or even a year ago in a different circumstance doesn't mean that that same principle is going to be applicable to every situation. So also being willing to unlearn, and sometimes it's about relearning. So just because I read something once doesn't mean that I have really absorbed it all the way, and being okay, it's okay to be like, yes, I kind of learned that, but I really need to go and relearn. Especially like there's so much happening in the AI world and right now, and so much chat and talking about that, and it's like, you think I'm not no expert on AI, but I need to continue to read about it, hear different perspectives, build my own, and then continue to just explore. And so having conversations with people, reading books, listening to podcasts on, there's so many experts who do such an amazing job in actually deciphering this information. So doing that, it's all a collective of both mindset of wanting to be really curious and learn, but also the ability to be flexible and know when you should be unlearning something and relearning as well.
Yeah, I think that's really important because I really like the way how you were able to find people who are smarter than you and being okay with not being the smartest in the room. That's like a big stigma that a lot of people have to face. Like, oh, if I'm not the smartest person in the room, then that makes me feel inferior. And I felt that for a long time in my life because I always thought if I'm not the smartest person, then that's a bummer for me and I have to be. But it's okay to just realize your weaknesses and your strengths.
Absolutely.
And other than vision without execution is hallucination, do you have any other quotes or mottos that you love to follow?
Yes, one that is, it's actually a quote by Gandhi, and it's called Be the Change You Wish to Make in the World. This is an extremely important part of just my life philosophy, because it's super easy for all of us to be like, here's a problem. And even like when my kids are growing up, they're like, Mom, this doesn't work. It's like, great, what are you going to do about it? Right? If at work you're seeing something that you actually think is not working, or a process that's been established but it's no longer serving us well, actually driving the change and leading the change is really, really important. And the biggest um, factor in changing something is that very first intention and step to actually have the desire to change. And I strongly resonate, especially in my role. I'm constantly really challenging us and pushing us to challenge the status quo and like think differently and drive change management across the organization. And so that is really important, that if I'm expecting other people to think differently, act differently, make decisions differently, I need to actually lead with that behavior and exhibit that and walk the talk. So that's another really favorite quote of mine.
Thank you for tuning in to Aarna's News, where we aim to inspire and empower women in STEM by featuring the stories of successful female professionals in the industry. Today, we had the pleasure of hearing from Sonar Thekdi, the Vice President of Strategy and Operations at Google Core, who shared 3 valuable pieces of advice. 1. Trust your instincts and pursue uncharted paths. 2. Build a diverse network and seek mentorship early on. And 3, be curious and embrace continuous learning. Thus, that concludes episode 43. If you want to know more about how I relate to these amazing topics, then stay tuned for upcoming episodes. A free way to support this show is by leaving it a 5-star rating and a review on the player you are listening to. Let me know what you enjoy about this podcast, as it's a chance to tell me what you love about the show, and it helps others discover it too. Once again, thank you for finding me, and I hope we stay in touch with each other. Tito, you're listening to Aarna Sahu, the host of Aarna's News. Toodles!